we saw in the second half 0 substitutions made for the United States women's national team. Lisa, tell me about your immediate thought and reaction to that going into this second half. Let's build it back up. Hello to everybody if you're joining us live after our break here. 1-0 United States women's national team entering this second half. No substitutions made at the half. Were you pleased with that? Were you okay with that?
I wasn't too surprised, right? It's only 45 minutes. I feel like a lot of times we see those substitutes coming in around the 60th minute mark, and that's something that Vlatko, head coach of the U.S. team, has talked about, that he wants these players to problem solve themselves on the pitch. And that's the beauty of soccer, where there are no timeouts, why there isn't that many substitutions. So you can't be talking tactics, sending players in. It's a very unique sport in that sense. So the fact that there were no subs at halftime, I wasn't that surprised about it, because this is a team that had a very good response, I think. I mean, a good response after they conceded that opening goal in the 18th minute. They didn't get their heads down. It was a very different response than the first game when Germany scored first. And then after the United States scored in that first match, and then they conceded again 4 minutes later. So initially the response from the second 25 minutes of the first half was good. There were chances, there were opportunities. And so because of that, Vlatko has to look at that and say, okay, we can't make too many changes and shake it up, because this team needs to figure this out. They need to be able to problem solve themselves on the pitch, especially when you look at some of the younger players. I mean, Mallory Pugh has a lot of experience, but she's still a younger player. And Sophia Smith, incredibly young player that has experience at the club level. She's coming off of a huge MVP NWSL season, but how is she converting those opportunities, those breakaways, those man-up opportunities into goal-scoring opportunities? How is the midfield able to move the ball quicker? So I liked that there wasn't any subs at the 45-minute mark. Now, 60-minute mark came and there was still no subs. And that's when I was kind of like, okay, like they don't look tired. Like it wasn't like, wow, this team is exhausted. But I think that was an opportunity to get a little bit more rotation in, purely to give players that have been called into camp minutes. I mean, we talked about it after the first match. Sam Coffey, I wanted to see her get a lot more minutes and a lot more time, and we didn't see her in this match. I think Trinity Rodman is another player that I wanted to see get more time and get more minutes against this high-level competition, and we didn't see that happen. So those were some things that I wasn't really circling at halftime. I didn't think that we'd maybe see them at half, but I initially, like, to roll out with the same 45, it was like, yeah, let's see how you continue to go at this team and how you convert those chances.
No, I'm with you. I wasn't surprised to not see any substitutions made at the half, but I still wanted to see them, and that's what and I guess that's sort of what I'm asking you. I still would have liked to have seen something coming out of that locker room, and maybe, you know, what came out of that locker room was a little bit of a different sense of urgency in terms of this, you know, a final 45 minutes to say something with this game for this team, for this particular collection of players, you know, on as part of this camp. And we saw some good stuff in that opening 10 minutes or so, you know, from the United States women's national team. I thought that in terms of comparing half to half, I thought Andi Sullivan had a much better second half than she did first half. I thought she had a much better second 45 minutes than she did over these 2 games period. Maybe that was because of the adjustment that we saw, you know, just in terms of positioning on the pitch, allowing Herrera to do more, you know, as an 8 versus, you know,
right,
watching Sullivan kind of looking to win the ball, but is really someone who's actually like really good in distribution. So like even the slightest of adjustments in positioning, I thought paid dividends for this team.
And jumping off of that, I agree. I think Andi Sullivan had a very good second 45 minutes, much better than we've seen her play. And so, yes, part of me is like, I would have loved to see Sam Coffey get 45 minutes with this team. But the fact that Vlatko kept Andy Sullivan in there, kept faith in her. Perhaps it was something said in the locker room at halftime, and now it gives her that opportunity to grow and to get better, because going forward, he needs a 6 that's going to play 90 minutes in the World Cup. You're not looking at a 6 that you rotate out at 45 minutes.
Look, I think when we're starting to get into these goals, which happened just about 10 to 15 minutes into this second half, we have to bring up Alyssa Nair again in this moment. It sort of felt at times, not just during this game, but perhaps in some of these final handful of games, the vision was missing in some of these games. And who's going to have more vision, I think, in these moments than your goalkeeper? And I don't know if that's going to make anyone feel better about this team, that your last line of defense is also the thing that sort of sparks offense. But Alyssa Nair coming up with a massive save and then just sort of quarterbacking and spearheading an attack sort of kind of rejuvenated this team a little bit. Lindsay Horan almost getting on the end of a really good delivery from Sophia Huerta, defended away briefly, incredibly briefly, because here comes the United States back the other way, and they finally get the equalizer. Let's talk about this goal a little bit, Lisa. What were you feeling when you saw this go down?
Yeah, I think that the time codes of these are huge. I, of course, was taking notes watching this game. I have 51st minute, great attack from the United States. I have a little bit of details about it. That was the Huerta cross that came in, and it was curling around Germany's back line. And there were 3 United States attackers, completely unmarked. Horan, Morgan, Fox, all looking to get on the end of it. They're just a little bit out of reach. But that was when I was like, okay, something's coming, because they were composed in the box, not giving it up, not giving sloppy passes away, which they had been doing in the last 90 plus minutes from last match into the first 45 minutes of this game. So that's the moment I knew that something's happening here. I have 53rd minute. Alyssa Nair, huge stop and save. It was a 2v1 getting past Naomi Girma, and Nair comes out top of the box and makes this incredible, incredible save. And it's those moments when a goalkeeper keeps your team in a game and doesn't let that hole when you're down 1-0 get any bigger, that gives players a jolt and an attack. And we saw that, because 53rd minute was the huge save. 54th minute was the goal from Sophia Smith, the equalizer. It wasn't the most clinical on her behalf. It was off a throw-in, a little give and go between Smith and Rose Lavelle. And Sophia Smith, we've seen her do it in the NWSL. Get the ball in her foot. She dribbles through defenders. She can cut and slice and dive, and then she gets an opportunity. She tried to do that. Germany got their foot in there. They poked it free, and the ball lands in front of Smith. It wasn't the most technical dribbling that we've seen from Smith, but it was a good bounce, and it landed in front of her, and she took her opportunity. I think that's something that we hadn't seen from this United States team, taking advantage of sloppy defense of our opposition and punishing them. And Sophia Smith does it in that moment, and does it brilliantly. The celebrations from the team were exactly what you needed to see. And coming off a goal from Smith, a player that had chances throughout the game, but I think that we had more chances coming from someone like a Mallory Pugh.
This is, for me, it was like watching 2 completely different halves.
Completely.
Like, honestly, it's just, you saw it at least in the opening 30 minutes, like, not to put like a big number on it, but it just sort of felt like it was just sort of clear that like this team has been operating in this 4-3-3, and they're trying to do more without the ball. But it's like we saw in this second half, this team get on a press and apply that high pressure and sort of see what it produced for them against a team like Germany in this second half. I think it goes without saying, we also have to know that for Germany, they made their rotations. We saw a complete goalkeeper rotation in this game. We saw 2 different goalkeepers, in the first compared to the second half. Lena Oberdorf had to come out of the match due to an injury. You had somebody slotting in like Lena McGool. just some different things that this German side had to deal with that were maybe a little bit different from the United States. I think removing somebody like an Oberdorf is going to be
Yeah.
massive,
Yeah.
for the United States trying to capitalize on something like that. But that's not to take away from this kind of relentless press that we saw from this team. And I love that Smith gets this goal and she's having this performance and she has this goal coming off of an incredibly long NWSL season. I mean, going all the way to the final with the Portland Thorns, winning dual MVP of the league and of the final. And, probably tired, honestly, like just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Like that's a long season. That's a lot of minutes on your legs. I don't care, what age you are. Everyone's like, but she's a younger player, but it's tiring. And then you're asked to sort of commit to this press, and then this is what happens. So I love that she got the equalizer. Love that she immediately ran to that bench and hugged a player like Megan Rapinoe. It sort of just felt like you could tell that this team came out of the locker room after probably having some words with each other,
Yeah.
and wanting to see some different results in this second half, which is probably why we saw just a mere minutes later the go-ahead goal by Mallory Pugh. And we're talking a lot about these young players, and people are reacting to what maybe they saw as something like experience or leadership from Pugh in a game like tonight. I believe she was named MVP coming out of this game. But all that tells me is that people aren't watching the Chicago Red Stars. That's all that tells me. Because
Call them out. Call them out.
you need to watch Mal Pugh in NWSL because despite her, her age and her youth in this team, she's a player that has sort of commands and demands excellence from her teammates. She's this type of player who can both be collaborative and be the type of player that can create her own shot. But because of that, needing to sort of just go ahead and command that sort of same energy from her teammates around her. So it was not surprising to me as someone who's like watched a lot of games locally to sort of see that from this player, because she's done it in the league, and it didn't surprise me to see it on an international stage against a team like Germany.
Exactly. She's doing it pretty consistently in the NWSL with Chicago. And the fact that this goal comes the game winner, it ends up being 2-1 is the final for the United States from Mallory Pugh just 2 minutes after Smith gets the equalizer. And you talked about the Red Stars, and this is a near assist. I'm going to say a hockey assist coming from Alyssa Nair, the goalkeeper, also plays for the Chicago Red Stars. It's a big kick from her. It then gets to Andy Sullivan, and this is where I'm talking about that Andy Sullivan played a better second half, because too often we see Andy Sullivan just making a rinky-dink 5-yard, 10-yard pass where there's a time and a place for that. But in this moment, Sullivan gets her head up and she sees that it's Alex Morgan and Mallory Pugh against 2 German defenders. Yes, that ball should be in over the top every single time. And Sullivan is the one that plays it in. And between Pugh and Morgan, they cause so much chaos that Germany can't clear it out. Mallory Pugh picks the pocket and she goes at it herself. It's essentially a 2v2 that very, very quickly becomes a Mallory Pugh against the goalkeeper. We saw her get in these positions before, and sometimes she doesn't make her angle as well. Even in the first match against Germany, there were chances that she could have scored this goal and she passed it off. And tonight she was selfish. She takes this shot. Goalkeeper does get a touch on it, but it's struck hard enough. It's towards the center of goal. It finds the back of the net. Immediately, Alex Morgan is jumping and celebrating. And that is the double goal response that the United States needs to have. And whatever was said in the locker room, they need to bottle that up. They need to take it with them going forward, because that was a relentless team. That was a team that was going to be ruthless in front of goal and finish their chances and put high pressure on and move the ball quickly from goalkeeper to defensive mid to number 9 striker. I mean, that's beautiful. That's how you break lines against a team that's putting a high pressure up.
I thought we could have seen a couple more.
Yeah, well, we should have.
Like you said, Lisa, to go back to the start of this second half, asked if you were surprised by lack of substitutions. And no, you weren't, nor was I, because what have we seen? We've typically seen subs coming in at the hour mark. So we did see some subs come into this game. I thought at one point, maybe now that, Pugh or Smith got a goal, that those were the players that would maybe come out at the hour mark. Maybe you keep this up. Maybe you bring in, who do we want to see? Nachi Sanchez,
Yeah.
Trinity Rodman. Right?
Rodman. I wanted to see Rodman at the 60th minute.
We wanted to see that, but we did not. We did not get that in this game. But they kept going. They extended minutes for Smith and for Pugh. Listen, we also said this in the previous recap of Sunday night, that when we saw that starting 11 roll out on Thursday night, where this, as of right now, that is the preferred front line for Andonovski. We're watching Smith, we're watching Pugh, we're watching Morgan, and that trio trying to go ahead and generate the offense for this team. But with the go-ahead goal, last game of 2022, I thought, hey, maybe we'd see some things, some different things, or some different looks in these moments. And in terms of how the remainder of this game played out, did you want to see somebody get swapped in sooner? Did you want to see somebody come in throughout this game to have a little bit of an impact, just to see what they can do? Tell me what you thought.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I wanted to see Trinity Rodman come in earlier. I think they showed her warming up, and then it was like 4 minutes of stoppage time, and in the 95th minute, she was like lining up. I was like, come on, Vlatko, you're going to give her more than 10 seconds here. But he didn't. And she ended up actually never even getting in. She didn't get minutes. She doesn't get a cap for this match. But I wanted to see her come in a little bit sooner, because I think that in future matches for the United States, they're going to sub that front line. You are. And we did see not interesting subs come in, but like Christy Mewis came in for Andy Sullivan. Like, why isn't Sam Coffey doing that? Like, those are the questions I have. We've seen Christy Mewis play that defensive 6 role one time earlier this year, and it didn't do anything for me. We saw Taylor Korniak then come in for Alex Morgan as a number 9. Is Taylor Korniak really going to play up that high? Like maybe as a withheld 9, but that was something that was also a little bit interesting to me. And then Haley Mace, a defender historically with the United States women's national team, comes in for Sophia Smith. And she's the player that's brought in to put on a high press against Germany, to win the ball back higher, maybe to really kickstart that defense and play a bit more of a defensive role higher up the pitch. So that's where I was like, this is so interesting. Like, put in Rodman. Rodman can run for days up top. And I think that if Rodman were to come in, say around the 60th, even 75th minute mark, I could have seen her taking out Sophia Smith. Smith had gotten a goal at this point. Pugh was still getting good breakaways, good chances. Pugh looked incredibly fresh, even at 85 minutes of this game. I was like, you are just running. She is another one that could have had at least another 2 goals, I'm going to say, throughout this match. So I think Rodman is one that I really would have liked to see get in. Sam Coffey perhaps in the midfield, but I was pleased with how Andy Sullivan grew into the game. But I mean, that's my biggest one, I think, Trinity Rodman, and give her some minutes up top.
All right. Well, we chatted a little bit about individual performances. We sort of, close out the game in terms of the first half versus the second half.